Hello, and welcome to another episode of Myths and Stories, a Destiny 2 lore podcast. This episode, we are doing something a tad bit different. Whereas normally we would go about a particular lore item that's happening in game, a particular person, dive into the history of a race of peoples, read through a lore book, something along those lines. This time, for a number of reasons, there's been some life changes this week, as well as a
I
vacation.
got a job, people. I'm a functioning adult now.
Yeah. So, regardless, we have had a very busy week and we have not
It has
had
been.
the opportunity to take the necessary amount of time to really get into some of the final bits of the seasonal story, which is what we want to make kind of our next main episode about. However,
We're also like 1 week before that final bit comes
right.
out, and so since it's so spaced out, like we don't have all the bits yet, so we've got to wait till the bits come to us, and then we can cover
Yeah,
it.
makes it a tad difficult. However, something did come out today, as a matter of fact, and if you go, wait, doesn't this release tomorrow? Yes, it does. There will be zero editing in this episode.
Haha.
So you get what you get. Sorry in advance. But today, the articles from Bungie in regards to the future of Destiny dropped on Bungie.net. And where these are not, most of the articles, there are 4, I believe, in total at the time of recording. A lot of them are to do with gameplay mechanics or rewards or UI changes, that kind of stuff. All really awesome stuff. I encourage you to go check it out. Not what we're going to be looking at for our particular episode. And there's plenty of other content creators, other YouTubers and such out there that I'm sure cover that in depth. But we are going to focus on the main article, which is titled Paving the Way for New Frontiers. We are going to be reading the article in its entirety. However, anything that is not lore relevant, those gameplay things, we're not going to really focus in on those. But there is a lot of information here that I think gives us some hints as to how Bungie may be approaching the next stories that they tell within Destiny. And so rather than try and dissect a particular piece of lore that's in game, we're going to try and discuss and theorize on how lore will be delivered and kind of what our reactions are to the plans as they have put forth, and pros and cons and all that fun stuff. So a little different than normal. If you're not here for that, totally get it. In our next episode, we plan to get back into the seasonal content story. But if you're interested to see what we think, and maybe if you haven't read this yourself yet, stick around.
Like me.
Yeah, this will be a first time reaction for one of us. Stick around. Maybe you'll find something that kind of piques your fancy. So, the article starts with paving the way for new frontiers, and it begins, "Today marks the 10-year anniversary of Destiny. We set out in 2014 to do something new and different for our studio, and we've conquered the Witness, looted dungeons, ascended to the lighthouse, and more. Now, we look to the future. We're plotting our course to the stars through codename Frontiers. We closed a door with the final shape, but we are opening a new one, a weird one, an exciting one, that takes Destiny to places it has never been before. We're building this future now and are excited to share with you a first glimpse of it today." They do have a roadmap here, a roadmap image, which I'm not going to dive too far into, but essentially shows that the plan, and they clarify underneath it, the plan based on this roadmap is that starting in summer 2025, they're going to launch an expansion, and then another second expansion in the same year in winter of 2025. Those expansions being named Apollo and Behemoth, respectively.
I like the idea of the one named Apollo. Like that was part of the project that the U.S. used to go to the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it started back with like Gemini and Mercury and all that stuff. But like the actual set that like went to the moon, like that was a new frontier for mankind. And I can't help but think that like somebody at Bungie was like, hey, let's do something like that. So I think that's really cool.
It is. I like that. And kind of the symbolism there, which is
Yeah.
neat. I I I hope it is an auspicious title for them, and that it like rockets them into this next awesome thing.
Yeah.
But with each expansion, a season will accompany it. So there's going to be we've already ditched episodes at this point.
Yeah,
Uh,
I was gonna ask about that. Like I'm looking at this thing, and it calls it 4 major updates of free content every year, and I'm looking at it. I'm like summer, fall, winter, spring. Well, that's 4 seasons. And then I looked over to the right side and it says seasonal update, and I was like, well, son of a
yeah.
bitch.
Now, what's interesting is it looks like there are only 2 seasons. Like each expansion will have a season that drops with it, and then within that season there'll be like
Oh,
big
sure.
update moments.
Yep, I'm seeing that now.
So,
So you have like the expansion,
mhm.
Apollo, and then you have like a season that goes with that expansion. And within that season, you're going to have like 2 major updates. So like all 3 of those are going to hit on the first beat. So it's going to be like summer, Apollo comes out, season comes out, major update comes out, codename Arsenal is what they've got listed here, and then fall you get like all that's still going, and then you get codename Surge is what they've got listed here for fall of
Yeah.
2025. Then in winter you're going to have like that big beat, boom, expansion, season, major update. Then in spring all that's still going on, and then boom, another major update. So yeah, it's seasons. That's
Oh
okay.
yeah.
We can call we can we, it's okay to call a horse, right? Like we don't need to call a horse a pony unless if its name is Xerxes, and Myth will understand that, and nobody else will. That's fine. But yeah, calling it the episodes, I I don't know. I was under the assumption that it was going to hit differently, and then when it hit like seasons, it was like, oh, well, let's just call them seasons
Yeah.
then. Like, let's not reinvent the wheel on this thing.
Yeah. So, but they expand upon this a little bit more down below. And they say over the next few months, we'll be sharing more info with you on Codename Frontiers, which is how we are describing major innovations coming to Destiny over the next few years, starting with our next expansion, Codename Apollo. We have several dev insight deep dives, which are what these articles are called, going live today, and will continue to add more to this list over the weeks and months to come. Today, we also have Tyson Green, the game director of Destiny 2, and Allison Lures, the Destiny 2 narrative director, diving through some of our future plans for Destiny 2. Our goal is to be more transparent in our communications. This means sharing our work more frequently, even if you see our mistakes and false starts along the way. So please remember that our roadmap and plans are subject to change as we get deeper into development. Ultimately, this is your game too. We want you to see more of how it is made and why. If you take away nothing else, it should be this: we are excited for Destiny to change and improve in ways that allow it to keep evolving into the future.
It has to, right? Like
Yeah.
you can't keep. I mean, I guess you could keep doing the same damn thing every year over year, but if you don't start you know evolving, you're people are going to get bored. Like that's just how it
I
is.
mean, they
Like
kind of
there's only so many.
are starting to in some cases.
Right, exactly. Like there's only so many times I can run a strike, and so many times I can run a seasonal event and just be like, okay, well I've done the thing. All right, well what's next? Like like you run a raid a few times and you get it down to where you're like, okay, we're running this raid in like 45 minutes. Like, I mean, once you start getting to that point, you're like, you feel like a well-oiled machine, right? Of a six-man fire team. But even then, like once you collect all the loot and everything, you're just kind of, I mean, you can use it as like a hangout and stuff like that. Like, hey, we're gonna go knock a raid out real quick. Cool. Let's see what funny stuff happens. And then you start kind of doing like weird stuff, like what I was doing there for a while. Whereas like, hey, let's go do Deepstone Crypt with only weapons from Ava Levante. And everyone's like, you're dumb. We're never going to beat this raid. 3 hours later, when we beat the raid, everyone's like, huh, I guess Avalanche does work for a DPS weapon when it's your only fucking
Yeah.
option. Yeah. Or like, I was like, well, let's take back the Taken King. You can only use Taken weapons or Taken themed weapons. I tell you what, now this was pre all the buffs to Whisper the Worm. War Priest was hard. It took us like 6 hours, and we barely. I mean, the screen was turning white. We had to go through four full damage phases with full whisper ammo every time to get her down, and it was tight. But yeah, so again, trying to have your players create content just to enjoy the game I don't think that's healthy.
No.
I think it's fun. It can be fun, but it's not healthy for the long term of the game. So yeah, I like this idea of like it has to evolve in order to uh, um, keep people interested. And also, I was looking through this roadmap again too. Uh, with the expansions, new stories, which is great for us.
Mm-hmm.
We love telling stories here. So cool. New locations, fantastic. New missions, new weapons, new gear, new raids and dungeons. Love that. That was my biggest thing, my biggest fear when they started moving to this idea. It was like, okay, like this year throughout the Echoes, I don't think there's a single dungeon or raid listed.
Yeah. Now I feel like I heard someone mention that there are there's a dungeon and raid coming, but I don't think it's
I mean, I
listed
hope
on
so.
like the roadmap
On
for
any of
any
the
of them.
roadmaps or
Yeah.
anything. And that's what scared me with this whole Echoes this episode model too. Is like it doesn't list them, and so like that's some I hesitate to say it, but Myths and my favorite content is the raids and dungeons. Like
Yeah.
the they are fantastic. They test your team your team communication. They test your like problem solving skills. They like everything about dungeons and raids are fucking amazing. And so when that was going to be like put on a back burner thing, I was like, I'm scared.
Yeah.
But now to see like all this kind of being planned out, I'm excited. And real quick, so Tyson Green and Allison Lures. Tyson Green is basically who replaced um, Joe,
I think so. Yeah.
and Allison Lures. Has she always been? I'm assuming she. I apologize if they are not. Um, are they the? Have they always been the narrative director?
So according to her LinkedIn, she is a fairly recent, and she goes on to say so later down, somewhat of a recent, face at Bungie. Uh, but
Sure.
she was the narrative director for The Final Shape,
Oh my god.
as well
Okay.
as the associate narrative director for Season of the Deep, Witch, and Wish. So she's she's
Okay.
done some things there.
Yeah. And those are some big story. Like Season of the Deep was where we got Asa and the whole like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, the witness isn't who you think he is. And then Season of the Witch, you know me and Mommy Eris, like
Yeah.
I fucking love Evil Hive God. Yes. That was amazing. And then obviously bringing Riven back into the fold and be like, "Hey, I'm not really dead." Like, you bitch. Like, okay. Yeah, those are some good stories. Like those really were some good seasons. So yeah, I'm I'm down with this.
Yeah.
Sounds like we got um a good fit for that position there. So yeah.
Yeah. So they list the Dev Insight deep dive. So like this is the homepage article where as more deep dives are released, they're gonna start including the links there. Right now they have one for activities, one for rewards, and one for the portal, which is kind of the navigation update that they are planning as far as the UI. So
No more director.
it doesn't sound like it, or
Interesting.
not in the
Okay.
way we know it now, at least.
Sure.
But we're going to continue. We get into the statement from Tyson, starting with our vision for the future of Destiny 2. Tyson Green goes on to say, my name is Tyson. I'm the game director for Destiny 2, and I'm excited to speak today about our team's vision for Destiny. First and foremost, we all still love Destiny. It is a unique and challenging game, both for you and for us. I've personally been working on Destiny for 15 years, and it still excites me creatively. There are not many games I could say that about. But at the same time, we recognize that it has become too rigid. Expansions have started to feel too formulaic and are over too quickly with little replay value. Seasons and episodes keep getting bigger, but can still feel like you're just going through the motions. We believe it's time for Destiny to change and evolve, and that our community wants this game to grow and innovate too. And to do that, we need to start breaking some of the molds. So, kind of,
And the big thing with some of this like evolution stuff, the gameplay, like the things that you interact with at a base level, shooting, using space magic, all that shit, I feel like are gonna like that's the core.
yeah,
Like that stuff probably won't change, but the overall like storytelling and how the replayability of stuff, how that's being fed to the player, I think that is what's evolving. At least that's what it sounds
that's what
like.
it sounds like, and I think that's true. Like the moment to moment gunfight and using your abilities and
Destiny's
like that that's Destiny's DNA.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like, nobody beats Destiny at that. People have tried, and people have come close. I'll admit it. Like, there are some that have come pretty close and have felt pretty good. But at the end of the day, Destiny does it the best.
yeah,
The gunplay and the integration of what everyone calls space magic. Your supers, your grenades, your melees, your abilities, all that stuff. Destiny does it the best, hands down.
100%, 100%. Uh,
I will die on that hill. Fight me.
I don't think you'll have many people that disagree with you, honestly. Uh, but yeah, and I'll we've it's been said elsewhere in the community, and I will say that I have felt this way a little bit as well. That like especially with the seasons and the latest episode, um, there's been some really cool story beats for sure,
Yeah,
and there's been some really cool activities that have come out of seasons. Looking at like the coil from Season of the Wish, um,
that was probably one of my favorite ones
yeah,
because it was the fire team scaling on that where you're like, I just want to go in solo and see how far I can push, or like, hey, I want to get a 3-man team. Let's get to the end. Let's get to the final chamber and get the 40 freaking chests that are
yeah,
in there. Like the amount of loot and shit that was thrown at you. The coil would like I want more of the
yeah.
coil.
Like those kinds of things were really cool. The cadence of the seasons though has gotten a little stale in my opinion. The
Sure,
whole,
absolutely.
you know,
You log on Tuesday, you do your story beats, and then it's like, okay, now go run the mission. You're like, well, I don't really want to. Like,
yeah, and
what do I get out of it?
well, and it doesn't help that the story, the way that they're delivered has usually been like, go talk to whoever the vendor is, failsafe at the moment. Go talk to failsafe. She has a MacGuffin, needs more data, whatever. That is like, go do the seasonal activity that you've probably already done a bunch if you were grinding out any kind of rewards from it. But
Sure,
go do it again.
namely red bars.
Yeah. Like go do it again or go do a random lost sector or, whatever. Um, it was broken up a little bit now that we have the exotic mission in play too, but it's very much like it seems to always be go do the stuff you've already done to come back and get more dialogue to have a reason why you can't just keep going that week. Uh,
Yeah.
and then sprinkle in the big story moments that like are the real impactful pieces.
Yeah.
So if they, and it seems
The things of
like,
like Saint getting taken control
right.
over
Yeah.
whatever, and then like that was huge. Like, oh my god, what? So, and then he has like an internal crisis of like, who am I? Am I even real or whatever? And then like got me thinking like, are any of us real type thing? Like those again, those story beats are great, but when it's kind of woven in between, um, I don't want to call it like basic stuff, but the basic seasonal stuff of just like, hey, that cadence of like what you're saying, do a lost sector, cool. It has something a little bit different with some dialogue, like, or like there's an extra scannable in there because you're doing it for this mission. Neat. It didn't really do anything. Like I've already run these lost sectors a billion times for nothing. Like yeah, that stuff is what's stale and I think needs to evolve.
Yeah. And it sounds like they're kind of recognizing that it's formulaic, going through the motions, that kind of thing. So it's nice. It's nice to see recognition there. Um,
Absolutely,
and so they want to change things up. So the first thing that they're going to change up is the annual expansions. And so Tyson goes on to say, we have loved creating annual expansions and are especially proud of the final shape, as they should be. But the truth is that they dominate almost all of our development effort. We need to free
makes sense.
ourselves up to explore and innovate with how we deliver Destiny 2 content so we can invest in areas of the game that will feel more impactful to players. Starting next year, instead of one big expansion, we're going to deliver two medium sized expansions, one every 6 months. Each of these will depart from the one shot campaign structure we've been using, essentially unchanged since Shadowkeep, and each will be an opportunity to explore exciting new formats instead. We are excited to try new things that challenge your idea of what Destiny can be. We are actively prototyping non-linear campaigns, exploration experiences similar to the Dreaming City or Metroidvanias, and even more unusual formats like roguelikes or survival shooters. Each
Holy
expansion
shit.
will present a new opportunity to try something different. Departing from one shot campaigns doesn't mean we are turning away from great storytelling. Going forward, we want to return to the mystery and wonder that was woven into the fabric of early Destiny, when the story felt ripe with possibilities and an epic sense of exploration and discovery. Great stories are as important as ever in our creative vision, and Allison will touch on more below. So we're going to pause.
Dude.
Uh,
Dude, can you imagine playing Destiny as like a Metroid or like oh my god, or like a roguelike? What the fuck?
I mean,
What does that even look like? Non-linear campaign? I have a hard time with the term non-linear campaigns.
so
So in my mind, a story has to be beginning, middle, and end. And that's like, but that's just like sixth grade English me. like like that's my sixth grade English teacher going, why doesn't your narrative writing have a beginning, middle, and end? Why don't you have a conclusion? Why don't you have an intro? Your paper is wrong. And me going, I don't fucking know. Why isn't this math? Get off my back. Like that's honestly a hard concept for me to
So
understand.
hold on that,
I'm holding.
because there's going to be a section further down where we are going to dive into that hard.
Okay,
Because I think that is a
I'm gonna
very
hold that and I'm gonna
valid.
stick it in my
I
pocket.
think that ideas of like linear versus nonlinear, what could that mean, is a really valid discussion point that has a lot of pieces to inspect.
Yeah.
And they specifically mention that lower further down. So hold that for just a moment.
Okay. I'm gonna hold all that.
But so the initial reading of this, of like, we're gonna go from one big expansion to two quote unquote medium. I don't know what medium is, what we could compare that to, but
I expect Curse of Osiris or Warmind or Dark
I
Blow
could see that.
or
Yeah.
every time they start talking this 6 months deal, because that's what those were. That's literally what those were. At they were probably a little shorter than that because between um yeah, because we got two of them in between. So the first two, Dark Below and House of Wolves, we got both of those before Taken King, and that was 1 year.
Yeah.
So that was Destiny launch. Then we'll call it fuck, what's 12 divided by 3? 4? 4. Thank you, math. Uh, 4 months in, fuck you. 4 months in, we got Dark Below. I think we got Dark Below first. And then 4 months later, we got House of Wolves. Like, cool, neat. Like, 4 months is a little rough, but even with those, I mean, we got a raid with one of them. We got the challenge of the elders with the other one
Hmm.
with Skolos and all that stuff. And even when we look at that same formula that they went into Destiny 2 with, right? Destiny 2, you had launch, and then within that first year, Curse of Osiris and Warmind. So 4 months, go. And even those were still pretty decent size. I mean, Warmind was kind of like the beginning of the revitalization of Destiny. Like
Yes.
when that Whisper of the Worm mission hit, everyone lost their fucking minds. Like that was the greatest thing to ever have hit Destiny ever at that time, and that is literally what revitalized the populace of Destiny. And then, 3 or 4 months after that, boom, Forsaken hits, and it's the biggest story beats ever. We killed Cade Six. What we they
Yeah.
somebody killed Cade Six, and now we're on a fucking warpath. Like the entire Destiny community got revitalized and was like, we need to go kick some Uldren butt. And so yeah, like I can see this being on that level. The other one that comes to mind is oh god, Rise of Iron. Rise
Mm.
of Iron was
Yeah.
also on a 6 month level. Like it was shorter than like because I remember at price. I'm thinking price point wise. Like I always try to equate something to a price point.
Sure.
Um, that one was only I think $35, whereas like House of Wolves and all that stuff, most of those were like 10 to 15, maybe $20. So with Rise of Iron, we also got a raid. We got some story beats. We got God, I can't remember that Archon arena. You know what I'm talking about? That was in the public space.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
That thing was really cool too. Like I remember spending hours out there just waiting for other people to just randomly show up and be like, "We're gonna take on a level 6. Like fuck it, let's go." Um, so yeah, like things can be in those stuff, and you can still have good story beats and stuff in that. Like so, I'm not afraid of this 6 month idea, honestly. Like I truly think that it can be done, and I think it can be done well.
Yeah. No, I think they have shown that uh, smaller content drops, as far as like maybe you don't have, you know, a 12-hour campaign attached to it, or whatever.
Right.
Like it can still be meaningful, it can still be impactful. Now, am I a little sad to think that that 12-hour campaign is likely never going to happen again based on what they're saying? Like, yeah. I'm not going to say I'm not.
I mean, does that mean we still take off a week every time a new
Right.
expansion comes out? I don't know. Maybe we only take off 2 days.
So like this is one of those, and kind of my impression with a lot of these things is, uh on paper that sounds cool, that sounds very ambitious on their end, which worries me slightly as well. But i I want to see it. I want to.
I'm okay with it being ambitious.
Oh, I'm okay with it being ambitious.
Yeah.
I'm don't want them to bite off more than they can chew, though.
Sure.
uh,
Like Final Shape. Final Shape, I think that the scope of Final Shape and what they were trying to do with it, I think was honestly more than they could chew. Because I think Final Shape, again, I don't know how true it is. The idea that like Lightfall was inserted to buy them more time for Final Shape. I, there's
I
some.
think it's all but confirmed. I mean, they originally said that Lightfall was going to be the final expansion, and then you know, 8 months later or whatever, they're like, well, actually, we're breaking it into two. Uh,
Okay.
so
Okay.
yeah.
That makes more sense for it to be like that than for it to be like broken into two. Okay. I was curious as to what the actual like cadence was supposed to, the original idea of the cadence, because again there was that idea of like, well, Strand came out with Lightfall, but Strand is green. Was that supposed to come out with Witch Queen and be tied into all that stuff? Like what's like, and it was all about like woven and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And then in the final mission of Witch Queen, you're dealing with thread cutters and stuff like that. Like everything about that seemed like it was supposed to be connected there. And then like again, I don't remember the exact wording of everything like that of like if Final Shape was supposed to come at Lightfall, but then they realized, oh shit, like this is a huge deal. Like we need this bigger. We need to put more time into it. And so then it was like, well, we've already got half of it built with Lightfall. Let's put that out. And then a year later we'll come out with Final Shape. And then to even come to that year later and then have like 6 more months of like
Right.
shit, it's still not ready. Give us more time. And then of course we got Final Shape. But like yeah, so again, I think having these smaller ones gives them um, a better development cycle. I always said, and I've said this before, and I'll say it again. In 18 months, I'm okay with an 18-month cycle. I'm okay with a 2 year cycle. Honestly, I'm used to playing. Back in the day, back in my day, all we had was World of Warcraft, uh, and those were on 2 year cycles. You didn't get an expansion every year.
Mhm.
You literally went 2 years. Now, granted, you had your patches, right? Like you had your 2.4 patch came out. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that'll fucking date me if people realize what 2.4 or 2.43 was. Um, so yeah, it's I can see that level of cadence, but like I think with Destiny that doesn't make sense. I think this idea of like these 6 month like medium size with a season on top of it, because again you can break it up into different crews, right? Like you have one crew working on expansions, you have one crew working on seasons, and then like the major updates can just be tied with both of those. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think I'm okay with this still.
And I like the idea that perhaps getting away, and we don't know how the like internal setup is for when they're working on stuff, or what teams are where, or
Sure.
how resources are allocated, but in my head it makes a certain amount of sense that if you're making a really, if you set out and you're like, okay, we need to have a big 8 to 12 hour campaign. I mean, there's a lot of work. That's a lot of like
That is.
VO. That's a lot of,
Yep.
just the non-gameplay stuff. That's a lot of,
Yeah.
working on the cutscenes, on the chatter, on, animating all of the characters that are going to be involved, and then creating the spaces, because in a traditional campaign, you can't, like, you need to be progressing through new spaces the entire time. You
Right.
need to keep it feeling like, oh, I'm in a new place. I'm in a new place. I'm in a new place. Which is wonderful from an experience standpoint from the player's end, but is incredibly expensive, I would imagine, from the like development resource side of things. Uh,
Absolutely. Unless if you design spaces, which they've done pretty well on this, design spaces around um, public areas that'll be used later.
yes, they have
But
gotten better,
there's still like huge areas. Like
yeah,
I'm thinking of like the entire time you're in the pyramid ships in like Shadowkeep or Beyond Light or anything like that. Those are areas you never revisit ever again.
most of the Braytech facilities.
Exactly. You never go back in that area ever again. You enter it once and you literally cannot it's walled off. You cannot get into those areas
Yeah.
anymore. So it they're definitely getting smarter about being able to use reusable spaces. So some things, but I mean you're talking one aspect of the storytelling thing
Right.
is just the environment. Like what you're saying, the voice acting, all that stuff. That stuff costs money and takes time.
Yeah, and not that I want them to have less VO, but I expect that we're probably going to get more of the um the ink cutscenes, like ink splash cutscenes, which I think are great. I
Yeah.
And less of any kind of like pre-rendered stuff, or even in engine maybe to a degree, but
They are starting to do a lot more with an engine. Like a lot of
it's a lot cheaper
this last
than
season stuff.
pre-render.
Exactly, and that's what I was thinking of too. Is like when we go back to failsafe and stuff, and like Saint and Osiris and stuff are there. That's all in engine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that stuff is a lot. I don't want to say a lot cheaper. I don't know if it is or it isn't. Like,
I feel like it
but I
must
feel
be.
like it's got to be
Yeah.
right. Like you're already in the engine. Like you don't have to like hit a loading screen and like have everything stand still and like have this whole scene play out and then come back from it and have have lighting and visual effects going on and like all that stuff. Excuse me. So yeah, I think an engine is cheaper.
Yeah, well, I mean, like a pre-rendered cutscene is essentially a movie. Like someone has made a
Right.
small movie that has been implanted
Yep.
into the game, and all of the things that come with creating a CGI film come with creating CGI cutscenes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all that is to say, hopefully by reducing the scope on the like the campaign specific portion of an expansion, that will allow them, that will free up resources to work on these things that they're talking about, like, well, what, let's make another space that is as full of secrets and things to discover as the Dreaming City was. Let's make.
Dude, the Dreaming City has a fuck ton of.
Oh, it's
Dude,
great.
there's secret bosses in the Dreaming City. There's a rotating secret chest, 10 secret chests every week that you can get to. That you have to have the tinctures
Hmm.
for. The Dreaming City has so much discoverable stuff that you are never pointed to ever. 90% of it is just like, oh my god, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love the Pale Heart. I truly like the Pale Heart, like patrol zone is really, really awesome and a pinnacle of their craft in a lot of ways. But I don't think I've ever had the exploration experience in any other zone that I did when the Dreaming City when it first dropped.
For sure.
I or the idea that like Metroidvanias, d- I don't I don't even know how that, like, you'd
I
go find a power
that's
up
what's
somewhere that
fucking
you
with
come
me.
back and lets you. I mean,
Lets you shoot through a wall and now you've
right.
got a whole new area you can access. But then does that wall like close after you leave, or is that now open forever? Like what does that
Yeah,
mean?
I don't know.
I don't fucking know.
We've seen them deal a little bit with roguelikes and survival shooters though. So the Coil we were just talking about is a bit of a roguelike.
I could see that.
The
You
only
progress until you die, and then once you die, like you basically have to restart from the beginning.
right, and as you're
And then
progressing, you're buying power ups to
yep,
can continue going.
yep,
The only thing it doesn't have that a traditional roguelike will have is a like permanent progression path. Because usually
sure.
roguelikes will have you get to a certain stage or you collect a different type of currency or you do whatever. And it's like, okay, not only did you get the power ups throughout your run, but for doing a certain milestone in that run, you also now unlock something that's going to make the next run different or a little easier or whatever it may be. Um,
Maybe I do like roguelikes because I really liked the Coil.
yeah, the Coil was a lot of fun, and I would love to see them iterate on that and really like dive into that type of gameplay. And I am a big
Yeah,
roguelike fan. Like, I love Dead Cells. Those kinds of games.
Hades.
Hades. Oh my God, Hades! I played that for so long. I cannot wait for Hades 2 to hit consoles.
Is that not out yet? Am I crazy? I
It's
thought that
in
was out.
early access for PC.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
But no, Hades, Dead Cells, Slay the Spire, like any of those kinds of like
Oh my god.
multiple runs, and you get
The Final
those.
Fantasy TCGIs are trying to get me to play Slay the Spire, and I'm like, no, I already play one card game. I don't want to play a fucking digital card game. They're like, but it's not really a card game. It's just a roguelike. I'm like, no, now it's two things. Like I can't pick a lane.
Yeah. So regardless, I think there's a lot of traction for a roguelike. Survival
Sure.
shooter is kind of what Onslaught is.
Is that like? I was gonna ask. Is that like? Is Horizon technically a survival shooter? Or
Uh, I
what would be a survival shooter? Like
I
I guess I
would
don't fully understand
compare.
that term
I would
either.
compare survival shooter in my mind is like a Left for Dead kind of game.
Okay.
Or it.
You said onslaught, and that like that kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like you're gathering resources to then put in something to make your run or your thing better, and then you just kind of keep going.
Yeah, and it's like and difficulty keeps ramping up, and it's how far can you get? I Call of Duty Zombies would be another take on survival shooters. So it's all about like how far can you get before you're overwhelmed, kind of thing.
Sure.
So the fact that they're even thinking about like what does Destiny look like in that flavor is cool. I think that is a real a potential to be a real reinvention of the game in a lot of ways.
Well, and like Onslaught hit pretty hard too,
Yeah, no,
and
absolutely.
I think that was a really well done thing.
Hmm.
So yeah, maybe I also like survival shooters. Maybe I don't really know what I like more.
Maybe you like anything that's in Destiny.
You're not wrong.
But so they continue.
If I could have a Destiny sports drink,
I there's probably one out there somewhere.
Dreaming City flavored Elixir Ether.
Oh God.
I'm not going into that. No sir, I refuse. You can't make me.
No, thank you. But no, so they talking about expansions is kind of what got us on that little tirade. Going from 1 down to 2, essentially a new expansion every 6 months, and then they talk about seasons. So Tyson goes on to say, with the change to 2 expansions per year, our seasonal model will be changing as well. Instead of 3 episodes, we'll be building 4 major updates per year, one every 3 months. Each expansion will launch alongside a major update at the start of a season, and then a second major update will follow 3 months later to refresh the core game with new and reprised content, including activities such as strikes, exotic missions, or entirely new modes like Onslaught, rewards of weapons, armor, artifact mods, exotics, new weekly events, new features, combat meta, and balance updates. The big seasonal resets will still happen, but now twice a year alongside the expansions. Each update will be a substantial refresh to the core game, bringing new activities and rewards. We are also excited to announce that, like Destiny 2 Into the Light, these updates and their content will be free for all players. We want Destiny to be easier for everyone to play or recommend, so we want to remove that major barrier to the experience, which means we need to talk about the core game itself. So, pausing real quick there. So, I'm a touch confused with what
Okay.
exactly is their plan here. Uh, so they have mentioned, and you can kind of see in the infographic if you tend to if you look this article up. They have their 2 expansions, Apollo and Behemoth. Each
Right.
expansion seems to have one all-encompassing season for the duration of that expansion, for the 6 months between that expansion's launch and the next expansion's launch.
Sure.
And then within that season, there will be 2 major updates to the game. The first when the season drops, and the second halfway through.
Yep.
Those updates are going to give us the like activities, new artifact mods, new sandbox stuff, all that good junk. But your seasonal progress, your like your seasonal level, your artifact level, I imagine.
I'm curious if they do away with some of those systems.
I wouldn't be surprised because it looks like that they said the
But they still
big
call it the big
reset.
seasonal reset will still happen. So
Right.
I guess maybe some of those systems will still stay. Like I was never a fan of this like season pass thing that stupid for okay, I'm gonna catch flack for that, but I'm gonna call it stupid anyway. That stupid Fortnite started. Maybe they didn't start. I don't know. That was where I first started hearing about
Yeah.
this idea of like a season pass. And so like
Now,
when it came to Destiny, I was like, this is stupid. Like I don't like
to
this.
be fair,
Um,
they're not getting rid of the season passes.
right because that's a moneymaker,
Yeah.
right? Like that's
They're calling
anything
them
that
reward passes now.
it's so
Uh
fucking stupid. Like, god damn it, I hate that shit. I know I'm grumpy about it, but it's like it's okay. I don't know. I feel
yeah.
like there's a better way to do it, and maybe there isn't. Like maybe this thing works because it works, and that's why everyone keeps doing it. I don't know. I just the fact that every single freaking game in existence has some type of battle pass, season pass, whatever the fuck you want to rewards pass,
Yeah.
whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's all the same shit.
It's
It's all get to level 5 and get a fucking skin, get to level 10, get a fucking like no, this is stupid. Like sorry, I got ranty. I
uh,
said I wasn't getting ranty. I'm so sorry. I told myself don't get ranty, and then I got ranty.
Just-
But again, if stuff like that is going to happen, like I do like the idea. I think I do like the idea of the artifact. I think the artifact needs to evolve again.
yeah,
So like right now, what we're seeing with episodes, they give us more choices, but don't give us more points. So your 12 points are now having to be shared across another 10 options.
yeah. It
And that's bad.
it
Like
doesn't feel
there
great.
was a time where it was like you get access to everything. Eventually you will just unlock all of it, which again, I understand that that's probably not a realistic thing, but we need to go to like 18, possibly 20 points into this thing rather than 12. Like that system needs to be reworked as well, flat out. If
Yeah.
they're going to keep doing this idea of like, hey, here's, you know, 25 options, and then in 6 months we're going to give you 10 more options. You have to give us more points. Full stop.
Yeah.
That just has to happen.
So the thing that I am unclear about, and I think is going to be a big, like, how it works out is going to potentially be a big deal for some people. They have specifically said the major updates, which come with the new and reprised activities, the new artifact mods, the sandbox meta stuff, and whatever events are bundled in. Those those major updates, the 2 per expansion, are free. Everybody has access to the content within those. What they don't specify, and I assume by lack of specifying, it is this way. The expansions themselves, I'm
And the seasons.
presuming, and yeah, and again, it's unclear what does season versus update mean in this context. Um,
I'm going off the infographic up there.
yeah, no, I
The
am
three
too, but
boxes to the
like,
side.
what does season actually mean versus like the major update? We don't have a
Right.
clear delineation of. I think season is just the term being used for the 6 months of the expansion kind of thing.
I think you're right.
But the expansion itself, Apollo and Behemoth, are the code names. I'm assuming it's still going to be paid, like paid content.
I think so. Yeah, the fact that they specifically specified like the big seasonal resets will happen, and all of this stuff is free for the major updates, but then they are not specifically saying expansion or seasonal anything about expansions or seasons.
Right.
I think we're going to see the same price point that we have right now. Like there'll be a $100 deluxe edition that'll get you everything, or you can do it like a la carte, where like one season will be, or one expansion will be $30, maybe 40. The same thing with the second one, and then each, you know, season reward pass, whatever, is going to be another 10. I say 10, but it's probably going to be closer to like $15.
Yeah, who
Because
knows?
I think right now it's technically $12 to buy a season,
Yeah.
or for a while there it's gone. I know this changed a while back. Like it used to only be $10 to buy a season. Now it's $12 to buy a season. Which actually, if you do it through PlayStation Store, like it's actually $15 because they don't sell a $12 um, $12 worth of silver. You can only buy 10 or 15, and like if you buy 10, you're still 100 silver short to buy. Like yeah, there's a whole thing there with that level of bullshit that drives me nuts. But yeah, I think they'll still do something like that. It just makes sense. Like I say, everyone's kind of gotten used to paying $100 if they want to do the full Destiny experience. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
which on one hand, like, I know they gotta make their money somewhere, and like
Sure.
that's a big, I imagine, a big cash flow. On the other hand, if you really want to tear down the barrier between new players and your game, truly make it free to play. Like,
Sure. I
just
could see that.
just make it free to, like, the reward pass. Sure, it assuming that's just
Have
cosmetics.
like a
Okay,
yeah, have like a paid and a non-paid like they have
right,
right now.
right, but
I
like,
could I could see that.
I just I don't like the paywall of, like, the paywall separation between meaningful narrative content,
Yeah.
because that's how people get lost into, like, well, what the heck's going on? Like, I
Right.
bought Final Shape, but not Witch Queen or Lightfall, and who's this witness? Why am I here? What has happened? And like there's
Right.
so much context that is lost for people versus like the comparison. And I'm gonna catch some flack for this. Uh, a lot of
I'll
people
still
a
love
lot
you.
of people like to compare Destiny to other looter shooters out there. One that I think is understandable but unfair because they're very different games is Warframe. I
Sure.
Warframe has, with a few exceptions, all of its content that has ever released just
Is
just
free.
you can just play at any point that you
Yep.
pick up that game. And Warframe has other issues. I'm not going to go into all that, but you can progress the story content 6 years after it came out and catch up to the most recent stuff and have the full breadth of where you came from and how you got there. And
Sure.
I feel like that does a lot to get people into your world and invested in what comes next. And so,
So I guess I'm going to cash back for this too. I agree with you slightly.
sure.
Um, anytime I think of any type of story thing, like Destiny has a hard time, uh, um, because of the paywall.
Yeah.
Um, I also look at games like Final Fantasy 14, where like in order to play the game, you are literally required to do the main story quest. There are whole sections of the game you cannot access until you have done the main story quest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think to some people that like even that is like a deterrent of like, oh well, I'm required to play content that is 5, 6, 7, in Destiny's case 10 years old in order to even be part of the game. I just want to play the game. I just want to be here now. So it's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
Like you're fucked if you do, you're fucked if you don't. I don't know that there's a good way to handle it.
I mean, I
But
think,
again, with their idea of like reinventing how storytelling is going to be done with this like non-linear campaign or whatever, I don't know. Maybe that brings something new to the table. I don't know.
yeah. So I think that in my eyes, the way you solve that is have it all be available, but none of it required.
Sure,
Like,
I could see
which
that.
I maybe is a little idealistic, but I think that would be the because for the people that are like, okay, what is this? What is going on? Like, what happened here? They have the opportunity to go back and go through all of that, and then the people that are like, I don't really care, but this is fun. Like, cool. They just keep carrying on. Uh,
Well, you know how we solve that, right? If they get into something and they're like, well, why the fuck is that the way it is? We just have Bungie put in a little like, hey, go see Myths and Stories.
yeah.
They got a whole section like you go and kill Oryx and they're like, what the fuck is the deal with Oryx? And then like as you're asking that, it's almost like a hey Siri thing, like,
Yep.
hey Destiny, what's the deal with Oryx? Well, if you visit Myths and Stories, you can go see their episodes on the Books of Sorrow that cover that whole thing. Like, neat.
Yes. If only. If only.
If only,
Say,
right?
Bungie, you have our
That's
email.
the
Uh,
yeah. Suck it.
but no. So, yeah, actually,
It's a fine line. It's a hard
it
thing,
is.
both left and right.
It
It
is.
really is.
But no, to dive more into that how they're changing the narrative. I'm gonna skip a couple sections here. They talk about the approachability of the core game as to like they're modernizing the UI and the activity director and all that. And they're also,
Sounds like the director might be going
I
away.
think I think it is.
That's kind of neat.
And they're also making a change to how challenge is happening. Essentially, they're going to give you the ability to like add and subtract modifiers
Oh, I like that idea.
from the various activities to increase or decrease
There's
difficulty.
other games that do that, don't it? Aren't there?
There are for sure. I'm trying like
You know what? First Descendant does that.
Oh,
when you go
okay.
into the when you do the harder difficulties, you can literally be like, hey, I want to add, enemy HP plus 20%,
Yeah.
or my damage output minus 10%, and everything that you add will like increase the amount of score that you can get at the end, which then increases the rewards you get for it. I like that
Yeah.
system. I really like that idea of a system, because I'm very much a guy that, like, on any given day, if I sit down and play a video game, I'm using it to relax. I want to chill out and just fucking kill shit, right? And some days I don't want to fucking kill shit on hard difficulty. I've done the ultra hard 100% new game plus of Horizon Forbidden West. And I will say, fuck that final boss. That shit sucked ass. And I hated it. I was stuck on that shit for like six weeks. I was stuck fighting this damn thing over and over and over again, because I didn't really truly understand the concept of ultra hard and what that freaking does to you. And sometimes I just don't want to do that. Sometimes I just want to sometimes I do just want to go in and do a fucking lost sector. Like, cool, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Stop getting ranty. Myth, you're making me ranty
I'm
tonight.
not doing anything.
I don't know what the deal is, but I'm ranty.
Uh,
Yeah, no, I'm okay again, don't reinvent the wheel. Like, all these modifiers are great. Make that a scalar thing, right?
yeah.
Like, I don't want to necessarily be like, I've got three difficulties, easy, medium, and hard, and you as the director or you as the game designer have determined, well, on easy we're only going to have these 4 modifiers, on medium we're going to have 8 modifiers, and on hard we're going to have 47 modifiers, and you're going to die, and when you die you go to heaven. Like, okay, rude, but whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that idea of a scalar. Like, that feels
I
fun.
do
And I
too.
think that's another idea of what they're trying to do too, with possibly doing away with like light level, right? Like, I think that's the we've talked about it before, of how, like, we're pretty sure light level and stuff like that's going to go away. And this may be the kind of poke into it.
Yeah. Well, I'm I'm a little less certain on the fate of light level now, based on what they've shown with some of these difficulty options. But no, I'm also a big fan of kind of the difficulty spectrum, the choose your own challenge.
Yeah,
Like, Hades does this really well. And by that example, I think this is a system that could be utilized really well in other across multiple game modes, across the roguelikes, across
sure,
the.
sure.
Hades has this thing where you choose different difficulty modifiers that make the next run harder, but you get, more experience, more the rewards are better for that run.
I could see something like that in Destiny. Like, hey, I'm adding these 8 modifiers, and, like, you know, let's say something like attrition or something like that, right? Like, hell, they could even bring back match game with something like that. Like, that could be a thing. Like, hey, I want match game. Cool. We'll add that back in there, or
Yeah.
something like that. And, like, match game could be a harder one that says, like, well, this will give you a +7 difficulty multiplier, or something like that. Like, it could be something like
Yeah.
that, where it could be, depending on what mod you pick, whatever um, uh, challenges you want to put in yourself, will give you like a higher challenge rating or a lower challenge rating, and then now you enter the game, and that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they have already touched very briefly on the rewards for those increased difficulties. Uh, so essentially, like, for increased tiers of difficulty, there will also be increased tiers of legendary items. Um, think adept weapons and artifice armor are the examples that they give here.
Yep.
Uh,
Which
so
I'd be okay with that
yeah,
too.
I would be too.
Like, because then you can target farm stuff. Like,
Yeah,
that gives you a way to be like, I want more artifice armor. Cool. Put these 5 difficulty modifiers on. Now you will always get artifice armor. Cool. Put these, 10 modifiers on. Now maybe you got a chance at double drops.
yeah,
Like, I 100% okay with that.
yeah,
Same thing with, like, more chances at red bars, more chance, like, anything that you can fill out collections and stuff like that. Absolutely, absolutely here for.
yeah. So I know that was a lot of, like, gameplay reward mechanic heavy
We
stuff.
said we weren't going to do
I
that.
know, but it's here, and it is interesting to talk about. So y'all can live with it. But now we're gonna get into the actual, like, true meat and potatoes of the narrative stuff that they're talking. So this next section is all from Alison Lures. I hope I'm saying that last name correctly.
It
To
has the umlauts above the
It
U.
does.
I don't know how to pronounce that.
So to give everyone some context as to where Allison came from, because she is a very recent addition to Bungie. And I was interested, like, what else has she worked on since she is seemingly, manning the helm for the story for the foreseeable future. So Allison is credited as the narrative director for Echoes, Revenant, Heresy, and the Final Shape. So all of the episodes, as well as the Final Shape. She was the associate narrative director for Season of the Deep, Witch, and Wish, which we talked about before. Before her time at Bungie, because she's only been at Bungie for 2 years.
Holy shit.
Before her time at Bungie, she worked with Wizards of the Coast. And she was the creative lead of world building for Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh my god.
As well as some other games such as Dark Alliance, Spellslingers.
None of them matter. All you had to say was Baldur's Gate 3, and I am as hard as a diamond in an ice storm, man. That game, oh my god. I have over 500 hours in that game.
I think we both do.
Like, I have played through that thing so many times. I'm sold. You had me at hello.
Now, to be fair, she did not work at Larian. She was not part of Larian Studios, the developer for Baldur's Gate. She was the creative lead for Baldur's Gate 3 from Wizards of the Coast side of things. So I don't know exactly.
To me that says like all the like rules and stuff like that, and actual, because Wizards of the Coast owns D&D, right?
Correct.
Like that's just, they just flat out own it. So with that would say like that would be like she helped write the player's handbook type thing. Like, how do I roll a new character? How do I build this world? How do I go through this adventure? Like, what type of expansion stuff? That's what that says to me. I don't know if that's what she did or what not, but like the fact that she was on the Wizard of the Coast side says that she's more tied to the D&D stuff, which, and Myth knows this, he's our DM. I fucking love D&D. I love it. It's so fantastic. So yeah, I'm here for this.
Yeah. So she also has narrative designer credits for Magic the Gathering, as far as some short stories regarding Magic the Gathering, story lead on Exalion, which I think was a Magic like expansion series. So has done a lot in the field of narrative. And again, we don't exactly know her involvement with Baldur's Gate, but Baldur's Gate was fantastic. And her work that we've seen so far in Destiny has also been very good. Final Shape,
dude,
speaks for itself.
All those seasons and Final Shape have been, I mean, even this episode so far, that what we've seen has been fantastic.
Yeah, my gripes with the season, how the season progresses or how the episode progresses aside, the narrative beats in the episode have been wonderful. So no complaints. Absolutely.
There. All hail Mommy Erin.
Oh, good. So
I'm just saying.
With all of that in mind, Allison introduces herself and goes on to say, hello, I am Allison, and I am new at I am the D2 narrative director. I am a fresh face at Bungie. I started doing narrative direction for seasons in fall of 2022, and my first D2 expansion was the Final Shape. We're proud of the Final Shape and the ending we created for the Light and Darkness saga, and we know that the episodes that follow would act as an epilogue, tying up Light and Dark's hanging threads, but also setting us up for what is next. The episodes close doors and open new ones, purposeful ones, storylines that are set in place to prepare us for what comes next. And what is next is our new saga.
Let's go.
You'll see teases of it in the later 2 episodes, and then fully kick off with codename Apollo. This next saga is also based around a core theme, much like Light and Darkness did. It will introduce plenty of new characters, factions, twists, and more. There's a lot more here we will say eventually, but we don't want to spoil the journey for you. This will be a multi year journey, one we can't wait to take you on. Our first expansion, codename Apollo, is a non linear, character driven adventure.
What the fuck does that mean?
So I'm gonna give their explanation, and then I'm gonna give a little bit of a deep dive on nonlinear versus linear.
Okay.
So their exploration. What do we mean by codename Apollo is nonlinear? That's literally what they titled as.
That's the only way you can title it, because everyone is like, what the fuck does that mean?
So they say previously in stories like The Final Shape, you experience the story as A to B to C to D in a nice straight line. In Codename Apollo, our story takes place over dozens of threads that you will explore and discover. So when you land on our brand new location, the story starts at point A, and then you can choose if you want to explore point C first, or try to get into point B, or maybe investigate point D. And the options you choose, and the options you didn't choose, don't worry. Those other options are still open for you to go back and play through. In fact, you'll need to, because the more you play and discover, the more the story will progress. So, experiencing a certain number of threads opens up the next part of the story. The order in which you explore will be something you choose, but we have built Codename Apollo in a way that the story will always make sense and flow from beginning to middle to end. There's no time gating, no waiting for the next drop. Codename Apollo's story unfolds based on player progression.
Do you know how hard that's going to be for a certain mystic penguin who likes things in a very much like, I do this and then I do this. Give me a checklist and I'm going to do this next thing. And how squirreled poor little me can get. Like, we are fucked, man.
So,
Like, there's no way we're getting through this thing in a day.
so I want to we don't know the scope of this. We don't know the how much content there will be, as far as like how long it may take. But I wanna really narrow in for a moment on linear versus nonlinear storytelling, because I think there's a
Sure.
lot to say there, and there are things to discuss. So I'm pulling from. I did some research today. I am pulling from two articles. One is titled "Linear and Nonlinear Stories" by Nadine Dam, and one is "Linear versus Nonlinear: The True Critical Framework of Gaming" by Raymond Arroyo. And from those two, I kind of formulated a few points that I wanted to talk over.
Okay.
So the first is just defining things here. What is a linear storytelling in games? And similar to how they described, linear narrative follows a defined chronological path. The player progresses through the game in a straight line by reaching predefined plot points. Examples that you would all be familiar with would be games like Uncharted, Last of Us, God of War. Very these linear games are almost always very narratively driven, a like you are watching a story unfold.
Okay.
So what is the pro? Like, what are the advantages to using linear stories? Well, devs can craft a story following a traditional 3-act structure more easily, that beginning, middle, end. Uh, and they can handcraft those big dramatic moments. And when they're writing a story, they know exactly what the player has already experienced leading up to that moment. And this allows the game to be much more narratively focused.
Okay.
Now, what is the downside to doing a traditional linear storytelling? It feels more like being a passenger in a TV show than it does
Yeah.
being a character in a game.
I was gonna say replayability is a big downfall
Yeah,
there.
replayability for sure. And they actually mentioned that earlier in the article that like our expansions don't have a whole lot of replayability. There isn't a whole lot of reason to
Yeah.
go back and replay the campaign of Final Shape. Or, I mean, by nature of the fact that they have the ability to skip the campaign entirely on other characters, tells me that there's a problem with the
Yeah.
replayability of their
Yep.
campaigns. But so you are advancing the character to the next episode, the next plot point, but players can struggle to feel like they are in tune or sympathize with that character. When something is so narratively driven, the gameplay can sometimes feel less important. So those are kind of the downsides to a traditional linear storytelling.
Sure.
So by comparison, what is non-linear storytelling in games? So a non-linear structure provides the player with the freedom to make decisions that can influence the story. The player's choices can offer them several possible endings. There are typically two categories of this: branching story and open world. So, an example of a branching story would be something akin to Baldur's Gate 3. There is
Okay.
still a clear, like, through line. There's still a, like, the beginning and the end of Baldur's Gate 3 are, I won't say always the same, but yeah, there is a beginning and the end that always have some
Yeah.
resemblance with one another, regardless
Like
of
you
what your
still start
playthrough
on
is.
the, like, no matter what, you start on the Nautilus ship.
Yeah.
No matter what, you end up interacting somewhere with either the goblin or the, I mean, you can skip both of them. I have done that. It
Yeah.
sucks. Because then you go to the crash at like level 3 and they're like, we suggest you be level 5. And I'm like, you can go fuck yourself, game. I'm going to play this game how I want. And it's hard. Act 2 is what I would consider that is you have to go through the castle.
Hmm.
Like you have to go through the night. Fuck, I can't remember her name. Night haunt, nightfall, nightshade. I'm gonna
Night
catch
Song.
shit for this. I know. Night song, whatever. You knew what I
Yeah,
meant.
almost
God
got
damn
there.
it. I haven't played it in a while, so I apologize. And then you have to go through Baldur's Gate, and then you have to go eventually defeat the Elder Brain. If at any point in time you start deviating, like there's like side quests and stuff like that. Like you go mess with the hag, or you go save Will's. I can't think what her name is, but from the burning building or
Yeah.
whatever. There's little things here and there that you can kind of interact with, but yeah, there's still a main throughput.
So
I
there
Yeah,
there is this like main line that you are, but you're not being guided necessarily to, like, okay, you finished plot
right,
point A, go to plot point B. Like the number of ways you can navigate to plot point B are enormous.
right.
A much less complex but still similarly structured example would be like the Mass Effect games,
Okay,
where you know again the main like through line is always going to happen the way it happens. Like you're always going to kind of have certain events that play out, but the squad you're with, the alliances you have made up to that point can be very different depending on what your decisions were prior. And I usually with a nonlinear game, when there are those big plot point moments, they want those plot point moments to be reacting in some way to those previous decisions. You know,
sure.
maybe you don't have a certain person in your crew that would have had a big revelation about a plot point that gives you more information, or maybe you really pissed a faction off that they attack during this sensitive moment where otherwise they didn't, and that would have progressed differently. uh, so there are some really interesting opportunities there. The other category of open world is your Skyrim. It is the, like,
Sure.
here you go, explore. Like that
Yeah.
is your
Go
only
do whatever.
direction, is explore.
As you interact with things in the world, that starts changing the world around you,
Yep.
and the world starts evolving to you, which I don't think makes sense in the world of Destiny, because it is very much still kind of like it's it's bare. Well, I don't know. I hate to throw this term around. It is an MMO, like to a point.
in
Like there's still like a
ways. Yeah.
right, like there's still kind of like this core world that everyone is exploring. So there's still these like core spaces and stuff like that. But like how you uncover those spaces can be different. And I think that's where the non-linear portion can come into play. Like I think that idea of like the branching story makes
I do
sense.
too.
Of like, hey, I've still got to go fight the witness, but maybe on the way there I fought, three dissenters or something like that, or like on the way there I befriended three dissenters. Like what
Right.
does that do?
Right.
I could see something like that. Now again, that's a hard thing to like put into words and imagine in the world of Destiny of like, well, fuck, wouldn't that completely change the output of fighting the witness? Well, maybe, but maybe you get extra dialogue or something like that if you do it one way, or maybe the fight with the witness changes slightly, like you have a different mechanic or something like that.
Right.
But then you still fight the witness, like you still have to kill the witness because fuck, he's bad. He's gonna undo the entire universe. So yeah, I maybe
Yeah. So if we look at some of
until I
the,
see it, it's hard to
it
to
is for
see if I
sure.
would like it or not.
So if we do the same thing we did before, so what are some of the pros for nonlinear? Players feel more agency over the world and the character, and can often form more of an attachment to that character more easily. Like
Absolutely.
the idea of this, I'm not controlling, Drake in Uncharted, and I'm just guiding him to
Right.
his next big bombastic cutscene moment. It's I'm controlling my character. I'm controlling,
Yeah.
maybe it's far fetched to say like it's me, but it is my avatar for this world.
Yeah.
And so like it's easier to establish that connection between the player and the world they're exploring, or the character that's exploring it. And exploration and that moment to moment gameplay can become a much larger focus when there isn't a need to drive the next plot point. Uh,
Sure.
when you're on rails to the next plot point, kind of thing.
Well, and like we saw in Final Shape, and I'm pretty sure all the other expansions, I can't think of one that didn't do this, but like Final Shape really drove home that idea of linear. Like your first playthrough of it is like you go to this checkpoint,
Yeah,
and that is your new like warp in point. Like if you like leave the area and go do something, like you go to a strike or something like that, when you come back to the story, you are doing that next, you do that next
yeah.
point. And like you cannot do anything else in that area until you've done every single point, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. So yeah, I could see that.
So, what are some of the downsides to nonlinear, or potential pitfalls? Because I think cons can be avoided for linear or nonlinear depending on how it's presented. But some of the cons for nonlinear storytelling is that it can sometimes make the story feel disjointed or disconnected.
Sure.
A recent example of this would be Star Wars Outlaws, which is a Star Wars game that just came out I think last week or the week before. Uh, Full disclosure, I have not played it. I have watched
Same.
other people play it, and I have read and listened to many reviews on it. And the what I keep hearing is the like last third of the game from a narrative perspective isn't too bad. Like is actually pretty good. And the very intro is pretty good. But essentially the entire middle of the game is nonlinear. Is this like here's essentially you have to assemble your crew kind of thing, and you can do that in whatever order you want. But because the game doesn't know what order you're going to assemble your crew in, it feels like all right, you had the on ramp, you had the intro, and now the story is going to pause while you go collect all the people in whatever order you're going to collect. And then once you've done all of that, now it can resume because it's back to like a known state. It knows what the player has access to. And
That almost feels like Octopath.
yeah, yeah, I
Because you could pick any one starting point, and like yeah, you have like a main story that's
mhm.
happening, And then like Octopath 2 does it a little rougher. Like whatever first person you start with, you literally can't remove them from your party. Whereas like Octopath 1, you could swap in and out however you saw fit. But everyone's story was still just kind of happening individually of each other. Like you stumble across your next person and like you have like a little cutscene there that's like, hey, do you want to see their intro? Yes or no? Like if you don't and you just want to keep playing, cool. They've now joined your party. You have no you don't really I can say can't say you do have no idea why they've joined your party, but like you really don't, and you don't really know why they even exist. But then like if you go like replay their intro, technically you're just starting the game over, but with that individual character, and then you see their intro, then it warps back to like present day, like right now, like okay, now they're joining your party and you walk off. So like it's but even then, like after they've joined your party and you start walking off, their individual story is still happening. It has nothing to do with the rest of your
Yeah.
party, and so that feels disjointed.
Yeah,
But
and I think that's a
yeah,
common pitfall for nonlinear games
yeah,
is it's
yeah,
hard to keep everything connected in a way that still
yep,
feels cohesive.
yep,
And they acknowledge, they acknowledge that saying we have built Codename Apollo in a way that the story always makes sense and flows from beginning to middle to end. That's one of those like I really hope that's true moments,
yeah, yeah,
because I think that's going to be the biggest killer for this nonlinear experiment is if it feels disconnected.
yeah.
Some of the other
I
things,
can I can see their idea there though. Like, you start at A and you will always end at
yeah,
Z, right? But like, however the alphabet you want to read, like if your dyslexia kicks in and you go A elemental P and then like then come back and do B, like I something like that could make sense. And you could even have like sections of that too, like you hit A and then like there really is like an LMNO that is supposed to happen in that order, and you go do that section, but that doesn't change how the overall story is happening. So I could see something like that,
yeah,
or like I'm also reminded of like Horizon Forbidden West, when like you get to a point where you find Gaia and you find the mountain, and she's like, okay, I need these three cores, and each one of those cores is in a different area of the
yeah,
game.
yep,
You can go hit those in any order you want. They have like a suggestion, like, hey, go here, then go here, then go here, like that will help you progress the story. But if you're just like, no, fuck that, I want to go to the south, I'm going to the desert, they're like, okay, cool, do it. Like you can still do it, it doesn't stop the game. Like you still have to do something else, like you still have to go see the other 2 points to kind of progress the story. So I could see it doing something more like that, where it is, again, branching makes the most sense
yeah.
here, like because it is a shared space among everyone, and there's still, you still want to tell a story, like that idea of branching makes the most sense, honestly.
Yeah, like for me in my head, with my limited imagination, I
That's
I
my problem.
am
You do not. You are our DM. You have the greatest imagination, man. I'm telling you, this guy.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But in my head, a way like using the events have already happened in the game. The way I could maybe see something like this playing out is all right, let's say you roll back to before we were allied with any of the enemy races. Before we
Sure.
were allied with the Elixni, the Cabal, the Lucent Hive ish. Um, Witness was the big bad. He was coming to destroy everything. And a way of non-linearly approaching that would be okay, we can't deal with him on our own. We need allies. And you would have the option of like, go talk to Luzaku, go talk to Keitel, go talk to Misrax. Uh, and so let's say you go and you talk to Misrax first, and you have like maybe two missions or whatever, two quote unquote campaign style missions that, you do something for him, you prove your worth, you gain their trust. Okay, Misrax is going to help you with the witness. And then
Sure.
you go and talk to Luzaku next. And maybe, initially there's a lot of resistance because Hive bad, but Misrax coming from a place similar as Luzaku of like being misunderstood and wanting to be a part of the light in a spiritual manner. Maybe he's able to like soften the blow a little bit, and there's interactions between those two that give you, you know, not a different mission per se, but different tones and maybe different dialogues to eventually getting
Sure.
Luzaku on your side. Versus if you had gone to the Cabal and gotten Keitel on your side first and then gone to Luzaku, Keitel would have been like, fuck everything, burn it with fire. This is an awful idea. And it might have been a similar flavor to the mission or whatever it was you were doing to get Luzaku on your side. But now there's a very different relationship that is happening while you
It's a
are
way different
right,
tone.
while you are like
Yeah.
doing that. And it feels, those interactions build up the world.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
feel like they give you the idea of personalities and you know, ideals and like past hurts, and they flesh out the world, and you feel like you are now having to be the arbiter between like, okay, Cabal, don't kill the hive, we need them, there's a bigger bad, versus,
Right.
you know, on the other side you're kind of like, oh yeah, you guys have a lot more in common than you may think. Like this is, you know, kumbaya and all that. Uh, but at
Yeah.
the end of the day, you still got to gather all three of them to go fight the
Yeah.
witness.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah, I could see something like that.
that's how
Like I said,
I'm
the
envisioning it.
branching honestly makes the most
Yeah,
sense.
100%.
Like looking at like a Metroidvania type thing of like, hey, I collected a buff. Now I blew open a door. Now I've got a whole nother section to explore
Yeah,
and find shit and stuff. That is the confusing point. Like you could do that like once or twice, but there and may like I guess for each player, each individual player, it would feel different to them. Like you know, but then the worst part about something like that is like if two people go to team up, like you invite your buddy over and they're like, hey, let's play some Destiny. And you're like, cool. How much have you played of this season? Oh, I played like an hour or so. Like, fuck, dude, I've played 75 hours. I have all this shit unlocked. Like, how does something like that work
yeah.
from like a cooperative standpoint? Because that's a hard thing too. But I guess we kind of already see stuff like that now. It's like when somebody else joins you, they're just in your world,
Right.
and now they just have
They're
everything
just
that you have access
they're
to.
just in your instance.
And
Yeah.
right, but then if you join their world, now it's kind of set to their level of like, hey, I've only found these like four things, and like maybe these other six things aren't static drops. Maybe they could have they're either dynamic drops where they appear in different parts of the world, or like certain enemies you kill have changed this drop or something like that. Like I could see something like that maybe working, but I still think you can't do. I don't think you could do something like that narratively. Like you
No.
couldn't be like, "Hey, I went and got this buff and opened up this area. Now I have a whole new set of dialogue that's happening, and I've got interactions with in-game characters and NPCs and stuff like that." Like, and then to be like, okay, well now I found another buff in here that let me go, back, four screens ago that I couldn't get through that section. Now I can talk to that guy and go through this section. Like I don't think something like that would work in Destiny,
No, and
but I do like that idea of branching.
yeah, I don't think for the Metroidvania they are thinking about making that how like the main story progresses.
Sure,
Or I read that more as a like, this may be a new style of activity that we explore. This may be like,
sure,
you know,
like the coil or something like that.
right. Like what
Sure,
if the coil, but you know, what if they built something that's like a solo dungeon, like a solo Shattered Throne-esque space that has Metroidvania concepts, and like, well, you gotta
sure,
run to this end and defeat this mini boss to unlock this power up, to run back to this other side to use that power up to unlock like the next section of the like something like that. Um,
I could see that honestly.
yeah, I
Like I really
I see
could.
that more as a gameplay exploration than I do a like storytelling exploration.
Sure,
Um, but yeah, so this whole nonlinear bit, I say is ended by Allison here saying Destiny is at its best when it is mysterious, weird, and not afraid to try new things. This shift to nonlinear stories isn't something we're locking ourselves into, but it is the structure that fits Codename Apollo best. The narrative structure of the releases that follow will be quite different, a structure to suit that game's experience. And we want to continue to innovate with each expansion across both gameplay and narrative. So, just briefly, the non-linear thing, it seems, is just Apollo. Like
Yep.
Behemoth, they have a different philosophy
Might have a
for.
different idea going into.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
which is cool. I like the experimentation.
I had to laugh at that first sentence, and it said Destiny's at its best when it's mysterious, weird, not afraid to try new things. And my first thought was like, just like my ex-wife, but then that's just bad.
Good God.
I know.
Uh, but I am, well, I'll read the next
I'm
bit.
hopeful.
I'll read the next bit.
I'm really hopeful,
I
honestly.
am. I am
Like that
too.
this idea of Apollo being something new, and then on top of that, Behemoth being something new. Like I'm genuinely okay with being a free playtest. Free, we'll put that in quotations.
Yeah,
Uh, Especially because these expansions are pretty.
are
Like we're pretty
probably
sure you're
gonna
gonna have to
cost
pay for
money. Yeah.
this. Like, yeah. I'm kind of okay with that idea of like paying to be a playtester. Honestly, like again that and but it has to come with this level of open communication between player
Yeah.
and developer, right? Like it's and that's a hard line for developers to kind of like tightrope tight bleh, tightrope walk,
Yeah.
because like if they play too much into like, oh well, there's a really big voice about this, but that's only like a, you know, 50% or 60% voice over here, and then there's another 40% voice that's like, hey, we actually really kind of like what's going on here, please don't change it too much, and then they're like, well, you know, the 60 outweighs the 40, so sorry, you're out of luck. Like it's a hard thing to try to, but then on top of that, you know, still being like, hey, we still want to tell, like we the developers still want to do something and tell a story and have our vision for what we want to do. How do we put that out and not have it like 60 million people shit all over us and
Yeah.
tell us our game is crap? Like, you know, it's hard. It's genuinely hard. And I think at the end of the day, as long as both sides have a little bit of an open mind of like go into it like, okay, let's see what this is. And then come back and go, well, you know, like this kind of worked here or that worked there, or you know, and even when you come out of it with like, oh my god, this was fucking amazing, like you'll kind of have a spectrum of uh what would you call that, reply, like
Yeah. So someone's 10 is another person's 7 kind of thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So like it's going to hit people in different ways and they're going to get different vibes and different feelings from it. So to take all that kind of back into account and go, okay, what do we do with the next thing? Like how do we address some of these things and go, okay, well, you know, for those that liked this, you may not like the next thing. Or for those that hated this, you're going to love the next thing. Like it how does that keep going and still kind of do a full spectrum satisfaction? Satisfaction? Is that a word?
Don't think it is.
Fuck it. I'm going with it. A full spectrum of satisfying everyone,
Yeah.
right? Like how does that play out? So yeah, it's a yeah, I'm excited.
I am excited. I am hopeful. I am worried.
Where
Is where
that's
I'm at.
always, I mean, I know I said this with Final Shape too, like with a 6 month delay there, like I was very scared for Destiny. And then when Final Shape came and Myth and I had a whole week of like, oh my God, what the fuck is happening here? This is the greatest thing we've ever seen in our entire lives. It hit everything and it was awesome. So yes, we know Bungie can do it. We know Bungie can hit those notes of this is the greatest thing I've ever put my hands on ever. But it's always scary. Every time they're talking about big change, it's always scary.
Well, and I think the biggest worry for me comes from the very harsh business reality that Bungie is in right now. And I
Sure.
am all for them experimenting and trying radically different things because I do think that is how you make things better. That is how you like truly innovate on your product. But
Absolutely.
what I'm concerned with that is that when you experiment, there is a chance, and not a small one in some cases, of failure. And the question I always come back to is, can Bungie afford to fail something like this right now?
I can see the concern there. Like that's a genuine concern. I mean, anytime. I mean, hell, Sony didn't just pay $3.6 billion for nothing, right?
Right.
Like they didn't pay that for failure, right? Like you, there is a level of expectations that like it's got to hit and it's got to again. But I think it's okay to like not hit 100%. Like
Oh, I do
I think
too, but do the higher ups
do the higher ups,
agree with
do the
us? Yeah.
shareholders, do the people that hand out the paychecks go, okay, well you only hit 60% this time, let's do better.
Yeah.
Like, can they actively say that, or is it like, hey, you only hit 85%, that's not acceptable, you're fired? Like, and that's a reality, right? Like, again, it's a hard thing to
It
do.
is. It is. But no. So they close it out here saying this all sounds like a big change. And it is. Because when the rhythm of our story becomes predictable, or when characters and our world fail to change, that's how we create a situation, not a story. So, how can we innovate? By telling a story that keeps up with our innovation, not one that slows it down. That means an evolving world, giving space for new characters, growing and evolving factions, making sure that the story we tell is in a world we have nurtured and with characters who have grown in return. We believe in rewarding the players for paying attention without punishing someone for not knowing something. That way, everyone gets to come along for the ride, no matter how deep in the lore they are. You'll see that approach starting with episodes and continuing into the new multi year story. So, when we think about a multi year arc, what does that look like? Think of it as a constellation of stories united by a single theme. We will show you what the theme is later, but suffice to say, we believe in it. Think of this multi year arc as a web, not a line. Each release fits into the larger saga. We can't wait to take you on that journey. Story is easy to spoil, so I won't ruin the details of what the theme is in Codename Apollo or what it's about, but I will give you something to look forward to. Apollo ends with the narrative gasoline that will propel us into the next few years with a clear theme, goal, and a destination that won't come at you as a straight line, but will still be well worth the trip. It'll reward you, it will surprise you, and it'll take us to places Destiny has never seen before. So, and then they do a little sign off, and
Is that is that is that like is that why we still can't free Runara? Anyway, uh yeah, no, again, the way that they're talking here is it's very I get real big D&D vibes from this, man.
in a lot of ways, I mean,
I mean,
maybe
knowing what you as a DM have shown us as like your little like your spider
it's a
web
story web, yeah.
of that shit fucks with me so many times. He's shown us to us a few times of like, hey, here's our story web, and it's just a bunch of lines and dots. But then there's all these little dots on the outer edge that aren't connected to anything. And I'm like, well, what the fuck are those? And he's like, you'll have to find out. Like, it can be very exciting, right? To be like, well, I don't know what the fuck that is. Let me go poke that. And I know from like a DM point of view, like on myth side of like how do I get my hook and stuff? What drives my character to the next thing that I have an idea of what the story maybe looks like, but at the end of the day, the player on the other end has to want to play that story, has to want to be a part of it. And maybe they in their mind have a totally different idea of how they want to play their character or feel this story out. So yeah, I'm excited, honestly. All of this stuff gives me this real big D&D vibe.
Yeah, in a lot of ways it does. I overall am very much looking forward to see what it looks like. I do hope it avoids the one kind of big pitfall that even similar like story building for D&D and TTRPGs can fall into, and that is I have so many of these cool little pocket things for you to do. So many of these little stories spread throughout that make the world feel big and rich and lived in, that it like that a overarching reason to be there just kind of fades into the background, you know?
Sure,
Uh
sure.
and that's something that I hope doesn't happen. They seem to be they're saying at the end of Apollo there's going to be a clear theme. They use that word theme. And if the theme is like exploration, cool, but what
Yeah,
like there needs to be a driving force. There needs to
yeah.
be a motivation that is happening to drive us through that story. You know, there needs to be, I don't want to say there needs to be a bad guy at the end, but there kind of needs to be a bad guy at the end, you know?
Right, because I mean, for some people, exploration is okay, but for other people, like again, it's that like what percentage does this hit? Like, if exploration is a key part of it, cool. There are other people out there that are like, no, fuck that. Just give me the bad guy and let me shoot him in the face. And so like I can see where it can be a again, it's a hard tight walk tightrope walk. Fuck, words are hard tonight. Tightrope walk that has to be done here to have a little bit of a driving force, but also still keep that like mystery and unknown about Destiny. Because again, with D1, like they captured lightning in a bottle and they didn't know what the fuck to do with it,
Yeah.
and it worked so well, and then it started to become this evolving thing, the first Vault of Glass, the first Skolas, the first Taken King, the like all this stuff was like really crazy. And then of course, unfortunately at the time they were under Activision, so it was like, well, you have to make a Destiny 2. Like, okay, well, let's blow up the world and do a Destiny 2. And then we've slowly seen, now that they've kind of gotten out from underneath that they've just like slowly integrated everything back in. It's like, well, maybe you did find this gun, or maybe you didn't actually lose that gun, and now it's better. And so here you go, like to slowly bring everything up to par the way that Destiny 2 kind of is. And I do look at it that way too. The journey of Destiny 2, from uh, base story all the way up to now to final shape, has been this like setting the bar of like this is the basic world we want to live in and play in.
Yeah.
Now let's start innovating. Now let's start exploring and expanding on all these things. Now let's start evolving storytelling. Now let's start actually telling new stories. And I think that's the big thing there, is like all of this has been a setup to be like, hey, this is the world we live in. This is the forces of light and dark. This is the driving bad guy. This is the driving good guy. Like whatever. Like all of that has been just to set a baseline of like what is the world of Destiny. And now we can truly get into the, all right, let's go. Let's start poking shit. Let's start going into the unknown.
No, for sure. Like it's not, I'm not saying exploration is bad or that exploration for the sake of exploration is a poor route to go, but overarching, the one thing I don't want it to lose is kind of the core concept of every story, in my opinion at the very least, is conflict. And
Sure.
there needs to be some external force that is pushing the plot onward, that is supplying resistance to the characters, that is causing them to make choices in this world. And if there isn't a reason to need to make decisions or push further and further into exploration, if there isn't a driving force, then it doesn't feel like there's a story there, you know.
Sure. It's at that point in time it's just a sandbox.
Right. At that point in
Like you're
time
just
it's, go play
you're
No
just there
Man's
to be
Sky.
there.
Like,
Right, exactly. You're just there to be there. Like you're there to play and kind of exist, but you're not really doing anything.
right. And I,
So yeah, the fact that they do keep harping on narrative as well, like that's they still want to tell stories.
yeah,
That's I think that's a big part of this.
yeah. And I think overall, my takeaway is I think a branching storyline, a non-linear branching storyline could do some really cool things if done right. I
Yeah.
I think the idea of this getting away from something more traditionally linear is really interesting, and I hope that I hope it all lands. I hope it's all just fucking wonderful when it comes out.
Yeah.
I and I hope that they're able to avoid the feeling of there not being that kind of like central pushing conflict, that they're still able to hold on to that, like you want to you're exploring not just because you want to explore, but because you need to explore, and you're getting narrative payoff for doing that.
Yeah.
So yeah. But
Okay.
yeah, that's the end of the Codename Frontiers article with the
And the
information we
beginning
have
of the
thus far.
future.
Yeah, kind of like I truly am really excited to see where this goes.
Me too.
Summer 2025 feels like a long ways away though.
That does. That does. It really does. But I know we've got,
We do.
two
Yep.
more episodes left of Final Shape. So yeah, I think both of those, like this first episode has honestly asked more questions for me rather than answering stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I like again, tomorrow is supposed to be like the big update to have, from my understanding, kind of the final week of the episode one. So like we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, no, it's still kind of an unknown right now for me. Like I'm not really sure, like what am I supposed to feel about this. But
Right.
again, we'll go into all that stuff next time when we start covering seasons.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, well let's do some shout outs.
Yeah. So say we have our backlog just keeps getting bigger.
I love it.
Which is
Keep sending them.
yeah, is not a bad problem to have. But if you're like, I submitted something 3 weeks ago, like, yeah, we know.
14 episodes ago. We get it. We still read it. We still giggled. Like, we will get you. I promise.
But so the first one we are going to do this time around is from our Twitter, coming to us from Dredge and Kane, who I know we have had shout outs from before, but they say, just finished this week's episode. And I got to say, Zor, it's all right to name your ghost around your own name.
I know.
I mean, just look at Fell Winter and Fell Spring.
I know.
Gotta be one of the cooler guardian ghost names in my book. So I mean, it's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
It's not wrong.
I'll. That's probably what I'd do. I've always gone with Zorialis for any type of in-game name. I've been using that for since the military. Oh my god. Have I really been using that for like 15 years? No, it's been long. That's been holy shit. What to name my ghost? I have no fucking clue. Like I've done all sorts of variations of Zor in different games. I don't know, maybe I'll name him Hothead.
Hey, there
Maybe
you go.
I'll name my ghost Hothead.
There you go.
Or Firebush. Or both. Hothead, Firebush.
Yep. Just bring it full circle.
Bring it full circle.
Yep.
Bring it back to my D&D character.
Yep.
I like it.
But yeah, I also do not have a name for my guardian or my ghost. Like
your guardian's name is Mythborn.
I mean, sure, but I know some people are like, my guardian is this person with this origin story, with this,
like my hunter.
Yeah, honestly, yes. Like, yeah.
I had a whole story with my hunter of like she woke up on Mars and she woke up near the Braytech facility and she thought she was a Bray, so she can only use Braytech weapons. And Myth was like, but what about the starter intro character where you wake up in the Cosmodrome? And I was like, shut up, Myth. And so then I had to like change my whole thing. And so now it's like, oh, she's awoken and she like found her way back to Queen Mara. So now she can only use awoken tech and stuff like that. And, which makes a little bit more sense. But fuck you, Myth.
uh,
Ruin my character sheet. Make me re-roll a new character. It's bullshit.
that's right. Rocks fall, hothead dies.
That's what DMs do. DMs are designed to kill your characters. Just know that. Do you know how many times this motherfucker has killed or tried to kill Hothead? And it's this motherfucker. I'm just. I
I
love
will
you.
defend myself and all other DMs out there. We do not try to kill your characters. We just give them consequences for their actions.
Some DMs do try to kill characters, no matter what you say.
Sure, but
Those guys are mean, but yes, I think there are some out there that do. But yeah, no, it is what it is.
yeah, but no, it honestly thinking about it, a lot of people have been able to establish that kind of like emotional this is my avatar connection with their guardian.
Yeah,
I just haven't been able to do it for whatever reason, and I wonder if it is some of the more linear storytelling that has made it difficult for me. Like think
you still look at your guardian as like VIP 2014
right,
and not Mythborn. Yeah,
they're I'm guiding them as they go through the inevitable victory that they're gonna have at the end. You know, it's I wonder if I will feel differently on that level about my character in a non-linear story. Like
sure.
I'm legitimately interested to see
I'm
how that
still
turns out.
curious if there was a contingency of like, what if we didn't get to the raid, and like the witness actually did win and we actually lost? Like, what? I am genuinely curious if they had a backup plan for that, or if it was always like, hey, we're gonna unlock the next set, but you guys got to get through it. Like that, I would have been.
They go to the server room, they turn the off button, they go home. Like,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
it's done.
They just start unplugging wires and just some guys running through with scissors. The place is on fire, and they're just like, "We don't know what to do.
They're like, "Well, you failed. We're done now."
We failed. That's it. Witness wins. You all died.
Yep.
Be finalized, suckers." Yeah,
Oh. But yeah. So yeah. I appreciate the call. Fellspring and Fellwinter is by far one of the cooler names in the lore, in my opinion as well. So
yeah.
we'll keep thinking about it. But let's see here. Next one comes to us from our Gmail. This person says, can't get enough of the content. If you guys ever need a third or fourth or fifth or sixth, love to get a raid or dungeon run in. I say, sidebar, with Frontiers coming, you predicted we may take the Dreadnought, but have we forgotten the name of the big round white thing in the sky with a portal in it? I think, right?
What?
What? I think we'll navigate to new frontiers and be the gardener the traveler wants, as I feel that's what the witness was attempting, but the traveler wasn't approving of their methods. To add to the reasoning of us being gardeners is we found the balance between light and dark, something the witness tried to force because their methods were ill-intended. Let me know what you think. So yeah, to address the first thing here, because it's not the first time we've had people ask or inquire as far as like raid alongs or dungeon runs or those kinds of things. Very flattered. However, not really in the position to do it.
Yeah.
Say
Scheduling something like that is kind of a nightmare, to be honest.
yeah, and you know, as we've said before, this isn't our job. This is the hobby. We, especially lately, have precious little time to actually play anything. And
No shit.
typically when we get on, it's just that is relaxation time, and we wouldn't want that to be a time to be like, yeah, to be on, you know, for a member of the community. Although certainly love that you would want to run with us in that, in those kinds of things. I will tell you, it's not what you're thinking it would be. uh,
It's a lot of me fucking shit up and being an idiot is what it is.
say our raid and dungeon runs are a lot of batshit insane, is what they are.
I'm very naughty on comms. I'll just say that.
But needless to say, getting back to your kind of theory here, about, we had talked about, Bungie has talked about the final episode. We're going back to the dreadnought, and the concept of like the armor was, well, what if we were the navigators of the dreadnought? And that kind of got us on this spiral of like, oh, what if we are the navigators of the dreadnought?
I
Uh,
really feel like that's the direction they're heading, especially after reading all this Apollo and Frontier stuff.
yeah,
Like, it seems like that is the way we are going. Is like we are going to ride out of this solar system.
I
And like looking at some of
yeah,
the concept art there too, like I don't
yeah.
it some of it looks humanoid, like humanity like, but I don't know. Like
It
it
looks very
seems
alien
like
to
we're
me.
going somewhere else.
Yeah, no,
It's a little bit of both. Like there's the
yeah,
one with like the like what looks like an old like battleship
yeah.
kind of like
Mm-hmm.
crash in the middle of it, and then there's other ones where it's
I th-
like this looks totally
I
foreign.
think maybe that's an old Exodus ship. That might be like one of the Exodus ships that
Oh,
made it
sure.
outside Seoul.
Sure.
Like yeah, there's stuff. The concept art shows stuff that we have not seen before, and
Yeah.
I'm here for it. I truly think we're gonna get outside Seoul. I Originally, yeah, for sure, hop the dreadnought and take it off into the stars. But they make a very valid point. Like, the thing's literally called the Traveler.
Yeah.
Maybe that plays a bigger part than we have been giving it credit for.
Maybe it helps us travel to places.
Yeah, who knows?
May and again that portal there on the on the I say on the inside that when we go inside, and I'm going to put that in quotation still, it's still I still think of it as that level of like pocket dimension
Yeah,
of like of something similar to the distributary. We just so happen to be able to go in and out of it. Like I think with the connection of light and dark now being all centralized to the traveler, I think we have more opportunities to see different things, like different worlds, different whatever. And maybe that is how we travel to him. You know, maybe the traveler does have some type of connection where, we see a memory of the traveler, and now that we're playing, like now that the traveler is remembering it, darkness is there to give it form, and now we have a way to get there or something like that. So
yeah,
yeah, I could see something like Big T being like, "Hey, come and take a ride with me." Yeah, I could see that.
yeah. Uh, yeah. So we're gonna do one more here. Um, Say this one comes to us from Spotify comments. New thing on Spotify. This comes to us from Beecher, who says, "Hello again. Just wanted to say that this episode is especially amazing." Talking about the Dynasty Part One episode here. You guys did an amazing job, and I wanted to say how much I love your work. Well, thank you. I
Yay!
look forward to your next episode in this series, and I hope you guys have a good time playing this new episode. I am currently on a break from D2, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about all the new lore. Thanks so much for being the best podcasters ever, and I wish you guys a happy week. Well, that's
Oh,
very sweet. Thank you. Uh,
yeah.
and I will say, I will be the first to tell you, do not feel bad about being on a break from D2. It's okay.
Nobody ever should.
It's okay.
Nobody ever should. I still my favorite person from is Yoshi P, because he's constantly told people like, hey, if you're done with Final Fantasy, if you have truly done everything you want to do, that's fine. Go play something else. I'm totally okay with that. We're still going to be here when the new thing comes out. Come on back. Like, that is a healthy way to play a game.
Yes.
Like, to be tethered to something so much so that like you feel guilty from. I told Myth like when I was playing First Descendant and stuff like that, when I was trying out something new, and I was trying out Genshin Impact for a while, I was like, I'm cheating on Destiny. And Myth's like, no, you're doing life, like you're playing games, like that's what you're supposed to do. And I was like, but I feel like I'm cheating on Destiny. Like it's yeah, you should never feel like that with a video game.
No, like they are entertainment at their core level. You are playing it because you are having fun or getting some level of like catharsis out of it. Like it should not feel like a job. Uh
Yeah.
and I know there's plenty of people that do make a living playing games, and more power to them. But oftentimes when you talk to those people, they will tell you outright like they can't play for fun anymore. Like
Yeah.
it is a job, or they really struggle to play games outside of their streams or their videos or whatever. I and like burnout's a real thing, and if
Yeah.
there's so many good experiences out there in the wide array of different games. You can be super passionate about one. You can really, really love and connect with one, like Destiny or whatever it may be for you, but do not feel like you've hitched your life to that boat and that's all you get, because there's
Yeah.
a lot more out there.
Like Baldur's Gate.
Like Baldur's Gate. Yes.
Or
Yes.
in this case, like Warhammer. No, Warframe.
Warframe.
What did I
I've
say?
been I've
Warhammer?
been enjoying Warframe a lot. Although I have heard very good things about the latest Warhammer game too. So,
Or Horizon.
or Horizon or
God,
whatever
when's the third
whatever
one
it
coming
might
out?
be. I don't know. I don't know.
It's gotta come soon.
I hope so.
All right.
Yeah. But yeah, so if you've liked this aimless rambling, and you want to support us in some way, best way to do so is just leave a like or a rating on your platform of choice. Tell a friend who might find this interesting, that we exist. That word of mouth campaign goes a long way. If you want to tell us your thoughts, you can do so via a text review, a comment. You can reach out on Twitter at Myths and Stories, YouTube, youtube.com/at Myths and Stories, or we have a Gmail, mythsandstories@gmail.com, and you may hear yourself as a future shout out.
Yeah. Also, if there's any stories that you guys are looking to hear about, like if there's something in game or a lore book or something that we haven't done, um, poke us. Like
Yes. Mm-hmm.
like throw something out there. Just be like, hey, I haven't heard about this random guardian that's in this lore, but like, what's his deal? Like, we love diving down new stuff. Like that's we're a little afraid now that we've started to hit the point where we're like we've told every story in Destiny, and we're like, okay, that's it. Now go play the game, enjoy it, have fun. So yeah, so like we may have a little bit of a slowdown in some episode cadence soon. I'm not gonna say the next one or next two or whatever, because like we still have stories we want to tell and stuff like that. We're just if again we're okay with seeing ideas from you guys. Like we love hearing from you guys. So if there is some story that like you guys want to hear about that we haven't touched on, yeah, throw us a poke.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The kind of harsh reality of it is that we do episodes faster than Bungie produces narrative content. Uh, and
That's
so
kind of how like I genuinely don't know how we haven't done a seasonal episode yet. We just so happen to like have enough content to keep pushing through and doing stuff. But like now we've hit the point where like okay, we have to cover the seasonal stuff. But like it just so happened to line up with what we believe to be the last week
yeah,
of the season. So like okay, well we lucked out on that one.
yeah,
But I don't know that we're going to be able to get that level. I mean, they are changing their release structure too, where like everything for Act One is going to be week one, but then you have 6 weeks of no new stuff.
right. So
What does that mean for
we're
us?
we're gonna we're likely going to hit a point where just our releases are going to slow down. There's some real life stuff happening that is really making life a lot busier in general. I
Like a new job.
like a new job. And
So I had so much fun today. It was the best thing ever.
that is the best possible feeling you can have after starting something new. Like I
I
love that
know. I'm so
that's the
tired. My feet
takeaway.
hurt. My back hurts. My fingers hurt. But I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Well, that's good. That's very good. But yeah, so we have some things there that are going to be making us more busy in general. And just like we were saying, we've been doing this for almost 3 years now. Jeez, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
I know.
And we have now started to like see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to reach the point where it's not we're telling we're telling the content that's been out. It's we're waiting for more content to come to then, you know, dissect and talk about and
Yeah,
do all that good stuff. And so there may just be some lulls. There's no way around it. We don't want to make filler because it's not
yeah,
fun for us to create, and it's probably not terribly fun to listen to in that instance.
yeah,
So in lieu of like neat of filler episodes, we may have some breaks. But if anybody listening is like, you know what, it would be really cool if I knew more about XYZ thing, I let us know, and we will absolutely take all of those and compile them and try and turn them into an episode or two or however many it works out, and fill some of those gaps with things that you guys generally want to know. So yeah.
yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna thank new Ether G Fuel,
God
uh,
damn it.
and try our better flavor, Dark Ether G Fuel. For those of you that feel a little scorny, I couldn't stop myself, Myth. I told myself don't do it, and then it just came out. That's just what happens. It's because of merchandising, Myth. You gotta get your merchandising on the flavors out there, Myth.
The worst part
Uh,
is like it's not that terrible of a parody ad campaign.
that's the worst part about it, right? Like it sounds like it would be a thing. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go get new Ether G Fuel, and their new flavor, Dark Ether. Like, cool. Yeah. That has to be a thing now.
It's got to be.
That just somebody's gonna make it. Somebody's gonna just know that we invented it. Just let everyone know we invented. The worst part is you can't call it Ether G Fuel because ether kills you.
Right, ether is an actual chemical.
Ether's an actual fucking thing. That's like saying, "Hey, does this smell like chloroform to you?" You can't do that because that's illegal.
Try our new energy
Wrong.
drink, arsenic. Like,
Arsenic. You can't do that. All right. God, no, nope. We're going to bed. This is it. We're signing off. Myth, do you have anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Well, from all of us weirdos and nut jobs over here that think we're lore daddies, to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next time.
You found your people. Guardians do love their myths and stories.